So this is chapter 3 of I Fell in Love with Hope. Sunrise. I still see him sometimes. He frolics, a boy who doesn't feel the weight of the place he lives. His hands toy with mine. He doesn't hold things. Holding my hands is the wrong word. Can hands kiss? He asks. Questions are his favorite form of play. I don't know. I think they can. His laughter rings in beats of 3, all the way down to his fingers. Our hands are kissing. He settles in his bed during the painful hours. Needles protrude from his body, tubes and machines with names too difficult to pronounce attached. He's a machine of his own, a broken one engineers deemed doctors take a crack at. His nerves protest, sharp like a jab in the ribs. I see their symptoms in his twitching face, the shifts, the subtle groans. None inhabit his curiosity. His mind, while his body cannot, frolics all the same. He continues to play with my hand in any way. He laughs when his ribs allow it. Needles are swords, he says, pretending. His most glorious games. Pills are gems. What are gems? I ask. They're stones, he says. Very pretty stones. Some even shine like the sun. Aren't all stones pretty? No, he says. His voice shifts with his body into a territory where playing takes too much energy. He empties, little by little. The disease drains him and weighs him down. I feel like a stone, he says, sinking into the bed. I interlace our fingers and move along the joints so that he knows I'm still there. Our hands kiss. You're a gem, then, I say, like the sun. He likes touching in the same way he likes pretending, asking, talking, and even when he has nothing to say. It makes him feel like he has a greater purpose than just being kept from death. He smiles, for me, but his face twitches. He shifts, rustling the sheets and looking out to his window. The sun rises every day, he says, light affectionately caressing his skin between the blinds. Do you think it rises because it fell? He didn't understand that I could have never answered him at that time. I never knew any more than what he taught me. I knew that hands could kiss and that I wanted to caress his face like the light did. He was my light. He was my sunset, violet with color, submerged peacefully by the dark. That was long ago. He lives in my memories now, buried, rebellious as he was before. He emerges sometimes in the corner of my eye, his laughter lost in a crowd, remnants of his questions still waiting for the answers in the night. The truth is, I don't fear the night at all. I live in it. Your eyes adjust, your hands become used to not being kissed, and your heart settles in the numb. The night isn't the enemy I make it out to be. It's the natural state of things when your sun burns out. So color me surprised when, years after mine has long set, a beam of yellow rises from the stairwell and eclipses the gray. Yellow. Her hair is yellow, not blonde or flaxen. Yellow, like dandelions and lemons. The color crowds dark roots, just enough so you know that it's a choice, framing her face with the glasses perched on her nose. Their eyes behind them flicker, and I can hardly breathe when they land on me. Eric! Sony spreads her arms, legs and out. as if it's possible to conceal her foaming beer bottles and cigarettes stench by puffing her feathers. Would it help if I told you your shoes are just stunning? While still holding the door open, Eric makes a throat-cutting motion across his neck. Sony promptly shuts up in response. Hikari? Eric sighs. This is Neo, Sony, C, and Sam. Hikari. Does Hikari know she has suns in her eyes? Hey there, Sony yells, waving with an open mouth while C waves more subtly, and Neo just nods his chin. Hi, Hikari says. Her voice is liquid, streaming and sultry, cool like the shade spooling over the edge of her mouth on a hot day. Wow, Sony says, making her way into Hikari's personal space. You're pretty. Sony, Eric scolds. It's fine, Hikari says. She's amused, enchanted, even, by Sony's enchantment with her. Are you fun? Sony asks. You seem fun. I like to think so. Hikari, Nico says, pensive over the syllables, as he rolls his chair deliberately in front of Sony. Are you from Japan? My parents are, Hikari says. I'm from the suburbs. I'm from the suburbs too, Sony coos. Neo rolls his eyes. Didn't know the suburbs were in hell. He deservedly gets flicked in the temple by that statement. Hey! That's Neo, Sony says, petting his head. He's our baby. Your captive is what I am. Neo smacks her hand off. Hikari, you've got legs. Run for it. Oh, dear God. Eric sighs into his hands, and I now wonder if they teach babysitting in nursing school. That's C, Sony points. His name is big and French like him, so we just call him C. Hi, Hikari. Do you need any help to get settled? C leans over Neo's handles, propping his upper body weight on them. The wheelchair tips back, and Neo nearly falls out of it. He hits C's arm with his notebook till the wheels reconcile with the ground. I'll help, Sony offers. No, you will not. Eric grabs her hand and C by the sleeves, using his foot to keep Neo in line. But I don't want to hear it. And cigarettes? Really? Have some class. He starts pulling them towards the door, held open by the cinder block. Go to your rooms. But Eric, Sony whines, trying to vain in return to her newcomer. What about initiation? I haven't even told her my jokes. Okay, so I'm taking a break for a second because I gotta tell you, my throat was really sore when I'm doing this, so it's kind of sounds a little weird, and you can hear it in my voice, but... Get downstairs. Hikari! Eric's face changes instantly, chin hooked on his shoulder, welcoming grin beaming. Sam will show you back to your room. If you need anything, don't hesitate to ask. Bye, Hikari! We'll find you when we escape! Sony waves her arm straight out over her head. Keep walking. The door shuts, locking my friends and their captors' voices behind its creak. Hikari stays put, only turning once there's nothing else to face but me. I can't move, because for the split second that she turns her head, I catch someone else's shadow in her place, someone else's expression, someone with the same eyes and the same voice from a different lifetime. You're Sam, Hikari says, half question balanced on her lips. Yes, I breathe, half enthralled, half stunned, fully terrified. Hikari cocks her head to the side, gaze traveling about me as if I'm wearing a map for clothes and she's reading the landmarks. She smiles with a crooked edge. Are you shy, Sam? I, my voice stuttered, treacherous thing. I, I'm not shy, I don't think. I'm just bad at existing. What does that mean? I guess this body just never felt like mine. Hikari's smile stretches rather than fades, that earlier amusement playing with her features. Did you steal it? Hikari is a patient, and from the glossy white band on her wrist, she's going to be here for a while. This can only go one way. We keep exchanging these pleasantries. I offer to help however she may need. She accepts a bit, but declines most. Then we part ways and become background to each other. That's how it always goes. That's how the part of me that's terrified of her needs it to go. Would you like me to show you around? I ask, recoiling, trying to stare at the ground instead of at her. I could show you to the cafeteria or the gardens. Hikari laughs, 3 beats worth roaming the roof with a slow, coquettish step. No. No? No, I'm not a fan of small talk, she says. Her baggy white t-shirt doesn't quite fit, and the skirt that bears her legs flows with the wind as her hair trickles like liquid gold down her forearms. There, bandages conceal her from her wrist to her elbow, and though I want to ask what led her to the hospital, Hikari had other plans. I have an agenda. Not to mention, I like exploring one thing at a time. You're exploring the roof? I'm exploring you. Hikari hooks her chin on her shoulder, her mischief grinning back at me. Didn't you know, Sam? People have stories written on them, around them, and in their past, in their futures. I like to unravel them. As invasive as that sounds, the wind catches her scent and distracts me with it. A sweet yet forceful thing. I almost lean into it before catching myself, but Hikari notices. She smirks, and I'm starting to realize as she eyes me like a book she wants to tear off a shelf, that she may be more of a troublemaker than any of my thieves. Sam, she says, not to me, to the sky, testing my name like a lyric she couldn't place. It's funny, I feel like we've met before. My heart leaps in my throat. I swallow, unable to speak anything past a whisper. Maybe in a past life. The wind disturbs us, knocking the glass bottles into each other. Hikari's gaze drifts to the ash marks and spilled alcohol at my feet. You stole these cigarettes and beers, right? Technically, Sony and Steve stole the cigarettes and beers. So, you're just an accomplice, she says, her suave nature replaced by a long sigh. Well, it looks like you'll have to do. Without another word, Hikari flips her hair into a ponytail and treads to the door. Where are you going? I've got something to steal, and you're going to help me. But... I stutter, but ultimately the gravity of my infatuation is stronger than the pesky shadow of my shoulder telling me that this is a bad idea. So, what can I do but follow her? Where did you say you were from? An infernal little town in the middle of nowhere. Nowhere? The kind of place everyone wants to know, but everyone else's secrets. Well, that sounds like everywhere. Where are you from, Sam? That's a question I often find difficulty answering, not to mention following Hikari down the stairs and waiting for an elevator. There isn't much to do except look at her, and every time I look at her, my thoughts no longer begin or end. They jumble together, until I'm an incoherent mess of flustered attitudes, trying not to stare so long that my cheeks flush and the butterflies make a fun house of my stomach. I clear my throat. The elevator arrives and Hikari leads the way into it, pressing the button for the ground floor. I'm from here, I say. The city? The hospital. A less amused expression finds Hikari. She holds onto the back railing as I do. So little distance remains between my hand and hers that I wonder what would it feel like if they kissed. Sam. What do you have? Hikari asks, and for such a serious question, it is so softly said. This is a scripted moment between 6 people, a rule of sorts. It states that when you meet someone within these walls, you are to ask one thing. What do you have? Who is your killer? It's a different outfit, but it's the same question. What she's asking is why I've been confined to the hospital for so long that I view myself as an extension of it. She wants to know to what degree I'm dying. Looking at her bandages, the otherwise healthy nature of her being, I want to ask her the same, but you're not supposed to ask that, I lie. And rather than nod or say she understands, another easy fit of laughter shakes Hikari's chest. 3 beats, again, as if her heart is laughing with her. What? Like prison? What are you in for, Sam? Apparently I'm an accomplice to petty larceny. Good, she says, the word paired with flirtatious notes. Then this won't be your first time. The elevator doors open, but neither Hikari nor I make the move. I told you, I like to watch people, but sometimes I struggle talking to them. When you've lived in the same place for so long as I have, you find out that people don't know what to say to someone they think is dying. People feel awkward around the sick, so they pretend the sickness is invisible. They avoid the elephant in the room so blatantly that you can tell it's all they're thinking about. They create distance without even meaning to, because distance is comfortable. But not everyone gets stuck in this pattern. Hikari thinks I'm dying. I know she is. Otherwise, she wouldn't be here, needing a tour guide who's been convinced to help her commit a crime instead. Yet somehow, whatever distance I create, Hikari wants to close it. And her curiosity, her teasing tone, her pretty looks, and her even prettier language. You're not very skilled at conversation, are you, Sam? Crap. I was staring again. I'm sorry. Why are you sorry? She asks. We step out the elevator's mouth onto the ground floor. She stops to sightsee the atrium, the light pooling through the windowed ceiling, and all the faded colors to pair it. When she looks at me again, the playful manner returns to the ghost over her smile. I'm plenty good at it for the both of us. It's actually kind of cute how nervous you are. My face heats, and suddenly I can't form a single syllable, let alone a sentence to respond. Hikari smirks. There's a library here, right? I nod, because I know I won't get any answers from her before I do. I led her there. The library is different from the atrium, more secluded, less central and medical. It's where patients can come to read in the plush stairs and find little words to escape into. "Excuse me, ma'am, I can't seem to find this book," Hikari says to the volunteer behind the counter. She says a random title and author so out there that I'm not certain either exists. "Do you think you can help me?" The volunteer nods curtly, and she says she'll look in the back. "I don't think checking out a book is stealing unless you never intend to give it back," I whisper. Hikari quirks her brow. "Why do you steal, Sam? You and your thieves." "Don't ask why." "Why not?" "I don't believe in reasons." "Why not?" I narrow my eyes at her inability to suppress her teasing. "We made a hit list," I say. "We steal to fill it." Hikari catches me glancing over her shoulder. "Coast is clear?" "Huh?" It dawns on me that a book is not what Hikari set her sights on. She doesn't waste a second hopping over the counter to the other side. My jaw drops, neck craning to the side frantically to make sure no one is looking. "What are you?" Without care, Hikari undoes the electric pencil sharpener at the front desk and uses a pen to dislodge the sharpener part. I cringe as it makes a noise like breaking glass. Hikari holds it up into the light, testing the authenticity of the blade, before frowning when she realizes bolts still bind it to some of the other plastic. "She's coming back," I whisper, and Hikari doesn't bother looking. She takes a few pieces of paper and a pencil, concealing her spoils beneath it. Then she hops back over the counter, grabbing me by the sleeve of my shirt. I panic. Every nerve in my body pulls taut. The finite distance between her skin and mine is so slight that I can practically feel the heat radiating beneath her bandages. "Hurry," Hikari says, laughing, letting me go and winking as she starts running away with me in her shadow. I gaze at the paper she holds tightly without crumpling. "Are you an artist?" "Of sorts," she says, looking over her shoulder and giggling as the volunteer looks around to see where we've gone. She storms an empty elevator, using her foot to keep it open so I can catch up with her. Once the door closes, she throws her head back, exposing the columns of her throat. A scar I can't help but admire peeks from her collar as she searches for her breath. A hit list?" "Hmm? You said you made a hit list," Hikari repeats, her eyes softer now, diluted in the darker corner, as if a wave of something comfortable and tired just hit her. "To kill our enemies," I say. "How poetic. You condone stealing because it's poetic?" Hikari smiles. A contagious smile. It doesn't catch my lips, but its crook certainly tries. "There's nothing more human than sin," she says, shrugging. "Now, where might I find a screwdriver, my dear accomplice?" Being called anything of hers brings back a warmth to my face, making me stutter. Why do you need a screwdriver?" "I thought you didn't believe in reasons." I can't help but the laughing breath that escapes me. I shake my head to scare the smile away. I rarely smile, rarely even for my thieves, but even this fear I can't explain has no power compared to her. We reach the floor where her room resides. The whole path, our distance, becomes a plaything. Out of the multiple maintenance employees, there is one who always leaves his supply bag unattended, and though he's taken numerous falls from a faulty step ladder, he has not yet learned his lesson. Hickory and I peek into the supply closet. I knew he'd be in. He's fixing a light bulb, his back to us, wobbling as the stepladder threatens to give out again. I put a finger to my lips. Hickory nods and watches me carefully step into the closet. Tools spill out of the bag, a screwdriver in the corner. I grab it as quickly as possible, but a draft buckles the stepladder. The maintenance employee falls to the floor, almost on top of me. "Hey!" he yells. I jump over him as Hickory shrieks and shuts the door behind me, the two of us making yet another run for it. "You were holding out on me," Hickory laughs. "I never do this." "You never steal?" "I never run." "Well," Hickory breathes, "you ran for me." Under the hall light, a pack of doctors storms through, interrupting us. They rush residents, the tadpole of the training pool, following and attending. Hickory and I step back against the wall like cars pulling over for an ambulance. White coat wingtips wave past, two nurses in tow, one with a stethoscope around her neck, another looking at her beeper. Their expressions are unreadable, part of their training. Hickory follows the responders with her gaze. Worry there. I don't waste time. The patient they tend to is in his own limbo. Our wondering will do nothing for him. Hickory doesn't relax once they're out of sight. If anything, her habit of observing doesn't stray. The way I resume our escapade like nothing happened strikes her more than it should. "You've lived here all your life, haven't you?" Another half question. This time the assumption speaks for itself. "I told you that I see the same things day after day. Apathy is a symptom of repetition. I pay running doctors the mind you would pay to a breeze. Life, I say, may not be the right word for what you're thinking of." It finally dawns on her that I may not be exactly like the other people or patients that she's met. Narrators are a natural part of the picture until you take a second glance. "Who are you, Sam?" she asks, and when she does, yellow flares dance in her eyes. "Something tells me you're more than just a familiar stranger." Look into the person and see someone you used to know, and ask yourself if you believe in reincarnation. If you believe a soul is never truly dead, only passed on to another body, another mind, another life, another reality. If you do, I must ask, what do you think makes someone real? Is it the ability to touch them, to feel the palpable nature in their heat, or the texture of their skin, the pulse thrumming in their veins, or someone real simply when their name is said aloud? When you breathe it into otherwise empty air, and it fills in with their notion? Hickory moves closer, and an old fear I know all too well wraps its claws around my shoulders. It may not make sense to you, but I've only ever known one person who could compare to the light she emits. You may think she looks like him, acts like him, and that's why I'm so enthralled. He's dead. He's a ghost, and so is what we shared. So don't compare the two. I compare only what they are. And sometimes suns are too bright that you're forced to look away. The fear takes over as it did when I caught her color on the bridge and whispers its rules. If she is what I think she is, I must not, for any reason, fabricated or not, say her name, and I must not let us close that distance for any custom, invitation, or temptation. I must not let her be real. I'm Hikari! Hikari's face falls into an annoyed scowl. An older couple, each wearing visitor badges, calls for her, stomping down the hall. Sorry, stranger. Fun's over. So this is running doctors, what they are. And sometimes suns are too bright that you're forced to look away. The fear to them to feel the palpable nature in their simply when they're with their notion. Hikari moves closer. Never known one person who could compare to the light she admits. Dead. And say, I must scowl. Confused. I'll tell them it was my fault, that I stole them. I'm an accomplice either way. You might as well let me take the blame. Trying to be my knight in shining armor, are you? Hikari slips the stolen artifacts into her pocket to save the papers, which she uses to hide the bulge of the screwdriver and sharpener. Don't worry. One day, you'll have the chance to steal from me again. Hikari! Her mother begins, worry wounding her face tight. Her words come out as loud as scoldings in a language I don't understand. Hikari doesn't say anything. She doesn't even seem to care that she's getting yelled at. Although when her mother turns to me, frowning harder, and starts to say something, Hikari stands in front of me. She turns back to her mother with crossed arms, coming to my defense. I wish I could follow her when she gets taken away by the hand. All I can think of, the farther she gets taken away from me, is the more Hikari gets to know this place, the more it becomes a part of her life, and the more she'll come to realize that truths are our only killers that can teach her. No matter what you steal, the nights are long, and one day is much an illusion as reason. Sam! Sony doesn't always need oxygen therapy. Her single lung fluctuates in efficiency, but she certainly isn't supposed to run. Not ever. So when she and C come storming down the hall without a wheelchair following them, my stomach drops. Why aren't you in your rooms? It's Neo. He's going into surgery early. What? His parents are here, C adds, and all three of us know that if we aren't quick enough, it'll mean disaster.